But that's not what our brain feels. That's not what it feels like. So not overthinking is the other thing. It's like, take that step before you can go into that down the path of overthinking. So there's that fine line. For me, it's, oh, there goes. Okay, boom. I can even say out loud, this is silly, or catch it
Right.
in its tracks, right?
Right.
And then go do something. But it is a practice like everything else.
Another edition of the most audacious podcast the internet has to offer. This is the Audacious Living Podcast, and as always, it's an absolute pleasure to be here as we continue our ongoing goal of helping our listeners live their best audacious lives ever. You've got it locked to episode 227 of the podcast, and I'm confident that you're going to take something away from this episode. Now, I say that because we've got confidence coach and author DeLuca on this edition, and she helps her clients hear their own voice, tap in their own skills and strengths and capabilities, and helps reconnect them with the confidence they already have deep inside of them. So it totally fits on this episode. Now, Ann and I met at a bookstore earlier a few months back while she was doing a book signing. I instantly fell in love with her work, and I knew I had to get her on the podcast, and that's why I'm super excited that she's on board and we had this chat. So without any further ado, here's my conversation with Ann DeLuca. Enjoy. Hey, Ann, thank you for joining me today here on the Audacious Living Podcast. It is an absolute pleasure for us to connect this way.
Well, oddly, I am so happy to be here. So happy to be here.
Thank
So
you.
thank you for having me.
Yes, no, and I think it's only fair that we let our listeners know the manner in which we connected. You know, you were in Chapters one day promoting your brand new book, which you definitely will talk about. And I was a passerby, and the serendipitous sort of connection between us made sense, and it's led to this conversation. That's awesome.
Exactly. I love it.
Now, as a coach, as I mentioned, you're an author, but you're also a coach. You inspire women, inspire confidence in women, I should say, which is fantastic. Very much on this podcast, we encourage a spirit of audacity and encourage individuals to as we say, live their best audacious lives ever. And so, confidence absolutely is a big part of that. It's a key part of it, I would say. And so to hear that's something you're doing specifically to help women is fantastic. So perhaps as a starting point, and we can get you to go a bit deeper in the work that you do, and we'll guide you to the point that you're at now.
Yeah. So as a woman's confidence coach, so I do focus on women, do have some men clients as well. But women are my primary focus. And I always say there's three things that contribute to confidence. And I call it my confidence recipe, if you will. And
Okay.
that's book 3 that's coming out by the end of this year. So the first component is you're going to feel fear anytime you want to do something new. Everybody, it's in your brain. It's that part of your brain that goes, we like things just as they are, and you're going to make them difficult, and I can't keep you safe anymore. All this nonsense, right? So the first ingredient is you got to take one step. So courage over fear. You have to take the smallest of steps. And my experience has been that courage and fear can't coexist. They just can't. As soon as you take a step, fear is like, oh, okay, all
Right.
right. Yeah. Second step is your mindset, right? So often we have this idea that, the glass is half full, the glass is half empty, all of that nonsense. The glass is refillable. And the bottom line is, and I want to make this clarity here too, is I'm not talking about positive, that, oh, everything's good all the time, because that's not true.
Right.
What I focus on more is the fact that when you tend towards a more positive mindset, you become more resilient. So it's not that stuff doesn't happen that knocks you off your feet, for sure. It's being able to recognize it and pivot and go, okay, now where next? So that's where I am with mindset. And the third piece is about trusting yourself. So I don't know about you, Audley, but I got a whole crew in my head that likes to jump in when I'm going to do something. And when I pay attention, often I notice that that voice isn't even mine. My mom's, my old boss, my grade 10 physics teacher, whoever
Right.
it was.
Right.
And that's okay. So recognizing that, and maybe there's some good input there. So that's not a bad thing. It's just at the end of the day, whatever decision you're making, you have to trust your instincts. So if it's, oh, Audley gave me this input and I really think that's the way to go now, that's perfectly fine. It's just recognizing that there's a whole crew in there that wants to get involved and ultimately trusting yourself. So those are the three components that sort of go on repeat with clients, is getting them to get some action, to shift their mindset, because that's a process, right? If someone's always thought that things are crappy, they need to do the work to move the other way. And it is work worth doing. And the same thing about trusting yourself. It's a process. So those are the three key ingredients that I use for sure with all clients.
Well, definitely big ones. It's funny when you talk about fear. For me, the funniest thing about fear is you think of all the back and forth and oh my gosh, and you're debating yourself and I don't know, and you're questioning and all that certainty, all that doubt, and then the moment you take that first step, it all goes away like it was never there. Right? It's like where were you? Like it's gone. It gives me a chuckle, because really what that first step allows you to do is create something which I absolutely love, which is momentum.
Yes. And recognize, I think this is the thing to recognize. And I always say to not just clients, everybody, is that fear doesn't go away.
Right.
It's not a one and done.
Right.
Our biology is still such that we have that part of our brain that thinks a saber-toothed tiger is going to come around the corner and kill us. So doing something different out of the pack back then did mean you would die. Now, not so much. May mean you rattle a few cages and some people get upset, but you're probably not going to die. But that's not what our brain feels. That's not what it feels like. So not overthinking is the other thing. It's like, take that step before you can go into that down the path of overthinking. So there's that fine line. For me, it's, oh, there goes. Okay, boom. I can even say out loud, this is silly, or catch it in its tracks, right? And then go do something. But it is a practice like everything else, for sure.
It's interesting to talk about that fine line before we take that first step, because there's a part of it that you want to, and let's call it due diligence, for lack of a better term. You want to, do the appropriate research. You want to make sure that with the direction you're going in is the right one. You want to make sure that all the appropriate measures and the safeties have been put in place before you do. But at the end of the day, you still have to take that first step. And it is a very much of a fine line, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Because often we're debating, I can only speak for myself, I'll get the call. Would you like to be on my podcast? Well, the answer is yes. Right? It's not going, oh my God, I can't do that, la, 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 I'm going to say something stupid, whatever. The answer is yes, then figure it out. There obviously are other things that, to your point, you're going to need to give some more consideration to them. But I know for myself, and when it works with confidence, with not just women, everybody, we're often talking ourselves out of something, if we give it too much time. So full disclosure. I coach what I know.
Well, and this is exactly, I think, and it really is a significant point. We all are humans. None of these things we're immune to. I experienced, in fact, I remember there was a point in my life where I was afraid to speak publicly. And the fear wasn't so much being afraid to talk to people. The fear was more rooted in this concern that I had that when I spoke, I wouldn't be understood. Like that to me would be the scariest thing. That I get in front of a group of people and I start to talk and I get this look like, what's he saying? And what's he talking about? And it petrified me. And the funniest thing about it is I have no idea where that came from. Like I cannot think of an instance where I was booed off of a stage because no one understood me. But in my mind, that was on the verge of happening, and I didn't want to do it. And so again, I use that example because these little silly things come up, and you use the word nonsense a couple of times, and I love it because it absolutely is.
Yeah. So what turned the corner for you there? What changed?
Thank you for asking. I consciously, so I knew it wasn't right, first off. So I knew there was a problem with it. What I also knew is that that people did want to hear from me. So I'd sit in a room and it'd be a meeting going on or something, and I'd stay quiet because I didn't want to be misunderstood. And people say, Audley, what do you think? So people knew I had an opinion. So that kind of helped me understand, helped me get to the point knowing that this isn't right. And so what I started to do, and it's very subtly, I would engage in a conversation, and at the end, I'd make a point, and I'd always check, and I'd said, "Does that make sense to you?" And people go, "Yeah, oh yeah, I get it," and then that would give me the encouragement to keep going.
Yeah.
Fast forward, I find now I still do that, even when I don't need that clarification. I think it's habitual where I say,
It's a
"Does that
habit.
make sense to you?" And every time I do it now, I catch myself, "Oh yeah, I know where this came from," and
Yes.
I don't try and stop doing that because I think it's a really good reminder for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. I love
Yeah,
to see the progress. That's awesome. That's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So does
Yeah.
that make sense?
It totally does.
Good, 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 good. You also talked about the voices
Yes.
in our heads, and I love the voices as well too, um, because they provide perspective, insights, fears. They encourage doubt. They do all they play both sides of the fence essentially. And so a part of it is you want to, the easy answer is don't listen to nobody, just do my own thing and ignore everyone else. But at the same time, there's insights that can help you. So there's value
100%.
in hearing what people have to say. Make
100%.
that distinction as to who you listen to and who you don't. How do you make that distinction, Anne?
Well, I think it depends on it's situational for sure, right? Depending what you're facing, you always having two heads is better than one. There's a reason there's
Right.
that saying, right? But at the end of the day, if you're always diverting back to what someone else thinks you should do, then that's where the question comes up when it comes to confidence. It's noticing what you actually feel. So if you feel something and you hear that voice and it resonates, and I point to my heart, it resonates here, your gut, go for it. But
Right.
if you get that voice, so this is the key, I think, if
Mhm.
that voice is not resonating, so maybe you're getting a pain in your gut or you're feeling, then that's different. So that is like a litmus test, if you will, for me anyway, when I'm going to take that step. Does it feel right in my body? Which is a lot of work I do with clients too, is trusting the information in your body. You, uh, everything you've ever done in this life,
Yep.
unless you've had an outer body experience, maybe, has happened in your body. So there's a lot of intelligence that we don't pay attention to. And I've heard that, and you can probably verify this, there's a split second between when you get that gut or heart instinct.
Mhm.
For me, sometimes it's a visceral response, my gut, before your brain kicks in and goes, oh, that's dumb. And
Right.
so noticing, what is that? Because that's where the information is. So yeah. Does that answer your question?
No, it totally does. That does make sense. No, thank you for that. And it's funny that split second you refer to. Sometimes that split second can seem like an eternity, right?
Yeah.
Because as you're
Yeah.
going through that process, and I do like very much the suggestion that you made about paying attention to what what's coming from your body, because I think our bodies are a good indicator as to what's going on, the feeling that we feel, and the uneasiness. I think those are really, really good things to pay attention to.
100%. I have a couple of really strong experiences of that. And then I just started learning and I look back in my life and remember the times I've listened to them and the times I haven't.
Okay.
But it doesn't lie. It doesn't lie. And what can happen, and again, speaking from my own experience and when I talk to others, is that minute that you give yourself to go, oh, that's stupid. That's dumb.
Yeah.
And then you do the opposite and you look back later and go, why didn't I pay attention? Why didn't I pay attention? So getting in touch with that is so important.
Yeah, very
So
much so.
important. Yeah. Yeah.
I gotta ask, how did you land in this line of work? I'm curious.
Uh, so I actually have a 20 plus year career in the pharmaceutical industry on the medical side of the business.
Okay.
And my last gig was about 15 years of managing a team.
Yeah.
Loved it, loved it, loved it. And gradually my team got smaller and smaller due to changes in the business. And I started getting bored. So I hired a coach. So there's two things that happened, I say, in January 2014. I
Yeah.
hired a coach. And my husband and I went to our financial planning meeting and I blurted out, plan for me to be making 50% less in 2 years, to which my husband gave me one of those, looks like, what the actual fluff is that? And I'm like, I don't know, but we need to talk because I wasn't happy. Everything was good on the outside, right? The money, all the perks, they were all there, but I was inside just like,
Right.
ah. So what I discovered after being coached was I actually wanted to become a coach. And so I did that training. And then so you want to talk serendipity, um, not 24 months, but 20 months. So I had that 2-year plan. So we started
Right.
making a plan.
Hmm.
The universe decided that my position would be eliminated. So,
Wow.
and so I get the call into the office, your job's being eliminated. So I'm sure they weren't expecting my response. I literally jumped up and I'm like, oh my God. And my boss is like, Anne, you can't be like senior management's around, la, la, la. And the biggest telling moment was she handed me an envelope with
Uh-huh.
another position and same pay, the handcuffs, I
Yeah.
call it.
Yeah.
Um, but 0 people managing a process. And I handed it
Mm.
back to her. I said, no way. And
Wow.
I give credit to my coaching, receiving coaching. So I was
Yes.
super clear on what mattered to me, that I was able to say, forget it. So that was 8 years ago last week that I started my own business. So
Wow.
yeah, it's been amazing. And so was I always a woman's confidence coach? No. Of course, different renditions, finding your niche, but it
Yep.
was during COVID when I started doing some volunteer work with an organization, um, where I was working with these incredibly accomplished, educated, lovely women.
Mhm.
And if it wasn't in the first conversation, it was by the second that they're like, everyone else has it figured out. I don't know what I'm doing, which was completely untrue, right? So
Mm.
I thought, boy, oh boy, I can do some work with this. And so that's how that niche, became, I own that and I love
Right.
that. And
Right.
yeah, yeah. So that's how that sort of happened.
I so love
Crazy.
how things fell into place in the manner in which they did, and really what that speaks to is that you were on the path that you're supposed to be. That's how that's how I summarize that and clearly see it. Had you not been, well, first of all, your reaction would have been different, right?
Right? I know, because everyone, of course, the email goes out and everyone's like, like someone's died, right? And I'm like, no, I'm good.
Right.
I'm good. This is a good thing. Yeah. And, it's always that 2020 hindsight looking back. If someone
Yep.
had said to me, 8 years in, you're gonna, do all this work that you've done, do all the training you've received and delivered, and then be authoring books, I would have said, you're out of your mind.
Mm.
There's no way. Um, we just don't know. I think we often are afraid to take chances. It's my goal is to inspire people to do the things they want to do and don't let those other things hold them back, because one life to live as far as I'm, aware, and so many people hold themselves back because of those things, fear, mindset, listening to other people, when really at the end of the day it's up to you. So
Very much is. I agree with you.
yeah.
And let's touch on the third one. I know we talked about fear and we talked about supporting others, but the mindset one is also a very interesting one, because I believe that that's sort of in my view, it's almost like the engine that keeps it going, right? It's like the fear is up front, but once you get past that, then you got to go. And the mindset is what keeps you going, and the support you get from others, or the voices, if you will, that sort of can help sustain you. But so much is around mindset. What if you could sort of expand on that a bit further of its importance?
Yeah, for sure. It's funny you bring that up, because today I put out a blog, and it's in how we speak, even our mindset directs how we speak. So today I was talking about, are you being clear? Because in order to get what you want, you have to be clear.
Like,
And if you're thinking about all the things you don't want, that's not helpful. So, for example, honey, can you don't forget to pick up the milk uh, to your kid? Don't jump in the puddle. Don't. But in order, the way our brain works, in order to not do something, you have to think about doing it first. So, of course, by the time your partner comes home, they've forgotten the milk, because all they remember is forgetting milk. So, what it's saying what you want instead. And this goes for us in our own head. So, remember to get the milk. Would you please walk around the puddle? So, making sure how we speak to ourselves
mm,
is the first place you start. So making sure that you're talking to yourself in a way that is conducive to getting what you want. So that
right.
intention, and training yourself. to ask for or do those things that you want instead of saying what you don't want, which is a human condition. We're geared towards the negative. That's just
Yeah.
how our
Yeah.
biases are.
Yeah.
So it is a practice. But if someone, I know I worked with somebody when I was first a coach, when I was doing my certification, and I've never honestly in my life worked with someone more negative. And I'd come home and my husband would say, "Why are you doing this?" And I said, "I need the hours for my certification." I'm like, "Oh my God." But what I learned very quickly, not quickly, but over the 6-month term, was at one session with this person, I got them to do all kinds of stuff. I get them to do a sticky note to put on their mirror,
Yep.
just to change, how they're thinking about certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And they, at about 5 months, said to me, such and such happened. And it was the same old diatribe each time. And I was ready to say, I'm done. I'm done. And they go, wait, you got to hear this. You got to hear this. I said, I didn't care. And it was like a mic drop,
Wow.
because with time and practice, they had learned to shift, even if it was just one specific thing. It never is one thing, because we think in patterns. So we don't just do things in silos. We behave that same way in many ways. So
Yeah.
that one change makes an impact everywhere. So with mindset, if you can make one tiny incremental change somewhere, it's going to have an unusually big effect
Yeah.
everywhere else. And so it's a practice. It's a practice. But I'm really cognizant when I'm working with clients of how they speak.
Yes.
And by that I mean, if they're saying, "Oh, this is a battle," and I'll say, "What else could it be?" And without hesitation, they'll say, "Oh, it could be an adventure." Same tension.
Yes,
Like
it
an
is.
adventure doesn't mean there's not pros and cons and excitement. But if you're in a battle with
Yeah.
somebody versus
Yeah.
an adventure,
Yes.
so it's just shifting how people feel about things or articulate things that can really change it. So it's pretty cool to see how that works.
I do love the intention in our language. I agree with you absolutely in terms of how we describe things and how and even in our mind, even certainly our speech, but before it comes out, it's already happening inside here. And so how what that language looks like, even how what we think of ourselves and how we describe ourselves, and you'll hear people they'll stub their toe and go, "Oh, I'm so stupid," and they well,
Right? All of
that's
that.
really important, right? All that's really, really important language you need to pay attention to. And then ask yourself, well, what makes you stubbing your toe? How does that make you stupid? Like how and those
Exactly.
are when you start to explore and I've engaged in conversations with clients as well, and you start to explore and get deeper, there's oftentimes a meaning behind it. And but that's
100%.
back to past experiences, childhood, whatever. But I
Yeah.
think the important thing is to recognize and understand it in that moment, because I don't think you can any other way, right?
Yep. 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 It
Yeah.
is a moment. And I think the first step is noticing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you decide, I want to change my self-talk,
Yeah.
you may not notice till the next day. Oh, yesterday when I did whatever, I could have said this instead. With the goal of catching it up. And by that, I mean, so that when you stub your toe, you're noticing right there, "Oh, I stubbed my toe." Not, "Oh, I'm so stupid," whatever. So noticing takes some time. It's a conscious effort. And then being intentional about how you want to be in that moment. Okay, I want to be more compassionate towards myself. I want to be more kind towards myself. And then rinse and repeat and see how you can spread that to other things. But start small. And it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
You're sometimes trying to replace lifelong habits, to your point,
Yes.
things that are going on in
Yes.
here.
Yeah.
And it takes time. So being kind to yourself about changing that behavior or habit, one tiny step at a time. But those tiny steps, as a coach, this can add up to transformational change. You know, yeah, yeah. You look back and all of a sudden you go, "Holy smokes, boom." But that's never how it is. It's little by little by little. And you look back and go, "Whoa,
Yes.
whoa, how did that happen?" Right?
The,
Yeah, super cool.
the word consistency screams at me right now.
Oh,
It's
my
got to be
favorite word. My
consistent. Oh, really? Why
oh,
is that your favorite word?
well, that when it comes to change, two words:
Okay.
consistent and persistent. So
Ah.
it doesn't matter what. I had a coach, and this was a personal trainer years ago, like I'm talking 25 years ago.
Okay.
And he said to me, and it doesn't, showing up at the gym every day is more important than doing a half an hour or an hour. Getting into the habit of consistently going, this is just what I do. And so I would show up at the gym every day and do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And 10 years down the line, you're going to see the person that's being consistent, whether it's at the gym, with their mindset, whatever they're working on, the consistent behaviors repeated over time. So the persistent piece, it's a perfect recipe, like for anything, I think, not, anything really.
Yeah.
It's magic. I really think it's magical that it doesn't have to be hard. I was having this discussion with my husband the other day about, it was about working out, because as you get older, you get more aches and pains. And
Sure.
it's the whole thing about, even if you show up for 10 minutes and say, I'm going to do a stretch, you're just training yourself to go, yeah, this is what I do. This is just
Yes.
what I do. So same with the confidence or whatever else it is you're working on, you get to the point where it's like, this is just what I do. This is who I am. So
I remember hearing a speaker, a gentleman by the name of Jim Cathcart, and he talked about starting to, starting to jog, and he was never a jogger. And it started with him every day, you're putting on his shoes. Didn't start running. You'd go and put on his shoes, and then he would leave again. And he even talked one instance, he and his wife were about to go out, and he said, "Oh wait, I got to put my shoes on." And he put on his shoes. He'd walk out to the front of the house and come back in, take off his shoes. Then they would and then it would start with the shoes. And he goes, "Okay, let me walk to the top of the block. Okay, let me jog to the top of the block. Let me go to the," and he said, and it was a build until now he's running full marathons. But you look back, and so to your point, these actions are training you and reminding you, this is who I am, this is what I do, and all he's done is, which, and I think is normal, is just to build on top of what we've started, right?
yeah,
Constant need to do more, if you will, right, and
yeah,
challenge yourself, and
yeah.
it's funny because when you stop, so when you start to recognize, so in his case, recognize he's doing full marathons, he doesn't even recognize the person that started way back and was just putting on their shoes and taking them off. It's night and day, right?
Right. But it's such an important lesson for all of us. Because I mean, it's cliche. We say you got to learn to walk before you run, as a
Sure.
metaphor.
Yeah.
And yet there's a literal example of where it totally makes sense, right? Nobody starts out running. You have to
No.
start with baby steps.
Right.
It's more sustainable. And so that is the kind of work I do. And maybe as a coach, you do too, is doing some change work. So I do a lot of mental rehearsal and with my clients as well, but also work that's a tiny shift. And so it's small enough that they can go there and go, nah, not for me. So
Right.
they step back,
Mhm.
but they're never the same because they've taken that step. So there's that. Or they take that step and go, okay, maybe one more like that. And so no matter what, it's a no loss proposition, right? Because
Yes.
if you step back, you still step back with experience.
Yep.
And so you're not the same. And
Wow.
so they don't realize that, but it's pretty cool. Those micro changes, if you will.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
One of the things that one of the areas that you certainly help your clients is getting them out of those ruts, or if they're feeling those points where they're stuck and they're unable to move forward. That's something that you certainly help clients with. I wonder if you could just sort of talk about how you found that as an area of focus for you.
So my one book in particular, I don't know which one you picked up, but You're Stuck Now What is
Let's
one of the
find
books
out.
I wrote.
This is it. Here we
Here
go.
you go. So that book was born during COVID.
Mm.
So what I discovered, and of course, it's always what's going on in your own head. There's nothing
Sure.
random, right?
No.
I realized I was feeling stuck, overwhelmed. You went through your feelings of, feeling depressed and needed. So for me, journaling, so having that question or thought that came up and
Mhm.
then reflecting on it
Yes.
moved me forward. And I realized, well, that's why the book came up. But what I didn't realize was those categories. So if you're clear on what you want, it's pretty impossible to be stuck because there's that beacon out there. And it doesn't have to be huge, oddly. It could be, I want a good cup of coffee. So it's going to drive you to go make the coffee or drive over to your favorite coffee establishment and
Right.
get it. So it doesn't have to be the big thing. Again, the little steps. So being clear is helpful. The second one is, well, habits and mindset, or pardon me, mindset and fear came in there too, because those two are so big in everything. They came up there too. They are universal. You have to be able to work with your mindset and take a step to get over the fear. But the other thing that often gets in our way is our habits. And the perspective on habits that I hold is that there's no good or bad habits. And people go, what do you mean? What do you mean? I smoke a pack a day. Well, think about it. If you smoke, especially these days, you're getting outside. So you're getting some fresh air. You're taking deep breaths when you're smoking. You're either socializing because of the whole gang that goes, or you're
Right.
getting time alone. So the premise I have is, don't get rid of the benefit, get rid of the habit and find another one to get it. So
That's right.
take up yoga, or do something that's going to give you that benefit. Same with if you eat a bucket of ice cream at night, you're getting a giant hit of dopamine,
Yep.
all those feel good hormones. Find something else.
Yep.
So when you're stuck, it's the same premise as everything else I do. It's finding them, taking the one tiny step, because momentum, as you mentioned earlier on, sometimes you just have to make yourself do something and the momentum starts. And so
Yes.
whether it's figuring out I want a cup of coffee or whatever the case may be, it's deciding to do one little thing that will get you out of that rut. And it doesn't have to be big. And I think that's the biggest thing I've noticed is people are always looking for the giant thing, but it's the low hanging fruit that's often all around you
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
going to help shift you out of that into the next thing. For sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
And
Yeah.
really, when you make it, bite-sized, manageable, it's easier to start, right? It's not
Yeah.
a lot of effort, right? And you think about it, anytime you want to start something new, or that thought comes up, all the reasons why it can't happen. Oh, this
Yep.
takes time, but if it's
Yeah.
really small and simple, like, okay, only a couple minutes, let me give it a shot, right?
Yeah.
And and
Yep.
and that and that's a starting point for how you create the momentum that we talked about earlier. So
Exactly.
and,
So
and,
true.
and I also do like the point around changing the behavior. So I've got a daughter who's on the autism spectrum, and we often talk about replacing behavior. So if there's a behavior that she's exhibiting, right, it's not going to be completely extinguished because it needs a replacement. So you're finding what can you put in that place instead of. And oftentimes it's totally doable, and it's just a matter of making that shift from one thing to the next.
Oh, it's so true, because this is why often people fail when they are trying to do things, break habits. And that's why I say habits are just get you reliable response. So you just
Yes.
get a beneficial response. And so if you do what you're doing with your daughter, which is brilliant, is help her get the same benefit that she feels she's getting
Yes.
by doing something else, then you're more likely to sustain that behavior, which is beautiful, right?
Mhm.
Because it's a win-win for you and her.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I love that. That's
Yeah, no.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Focus on those replacement behaviors.
Yes, yes. And you're more likely to succeed. I mean, that's the bottom line, right?
It just is. It just is. Like the cold turkey thing just doesn't work. Drop this,
No,
it just doesn't work. And it's
no,
gonna
because
I
you're,
think I was gonna say, I think you're setting yourself up for a bigger fall if you do try that approach.
yeah, yeah. And because habits are so powerful, they are powerful, right? We do so many things unconsciously that unless you consciously take that time to figure something out, it's just going to be there. It's just like, it's time for a cigarette, or it's time for ice cream, or it's time for whatever. But if you have something else to go to, then you'll be able to
Yeah.
gradually over time replace it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
I,
Yeah.
I also love the point just made around the importance of clarity, and when you're clear on you're what you are, what your purpose, it makes a way smoother, if you will, essentially, in terms
Yeah,
of where you want
yeah.
to go to. But I was just had a conversation with someone the other day where we started off the session around, I don't know what my purpose is, right? And that was the kind of conversation, and that individual was kind of searching for what their purpose is, and no matter how much we talked about, well, what do you like doing, or what are your interests, or what brings you joy, what brings you happiness, what brings you fulfillment, because oftentimes it's in those things that we can find our purpose, right? And it was just interesting how it took it took her a long time to sort of land on that. And but once I think once she did, it's like, oh yeah, I do kind of like this. And so my approach has always been, stay close as you possibly can to the things that you enjoy, the things that bring you encouragement, the things that give you energy, the things that you're passionate about, because it's in those moments you'll find the things that drive you, motivate you. And
Yeah.
it just so the clarity thing is that it resonates huge with you, just I guess
Oh,
because we just had that conversation.
right, right. And often I find the nuggets can be when I say to my client, depending what it is, often it's confidence, and
Yeah.
they think they've never been confident, is to help them go back to a real experience they've had of confidence. And what I do will say, I'll ask them to think of a time they're confident and not share it with me. And so what that does is there's a couple things, because at first I've had literally heads of Canadian organizations say to me, what does it mean? I'm like, well, I don't need to know. And so the first thing that does, as you know, is when we open our mouth to speak, we are always filtering. It's so quick because as
Like,
humans, we want to stay in connection because that's just survival, right?
yep.
But if someone can sit there with their thoughts, something will come up. And the reason something always comes up is social compliance. So if I asked you any question and you didn't have to answer it out loud, you'll come up with something because I'm sitting here waiting with patience. So often they'll come up and go, oh, and that's when they want to tell you. I go, no, wait a second here. And let them actually sit in it and experience it, because people forget and they go for the big thing again. So when it comes to confidence, I'll say the same thing to them. It doesn't have to be you were standing in front of 300 people giving this fantastic speech. Could have been, I knew when I was 10 years old I could hit the T-ball or reach the net in basketball, whatever it was. Because those feelings and sensations in your body, that's where the learning is, because you get them to tap into that feeling so that when they're in a situation where they're not feeling confident,
Mhm.
they go, wait a minute, when I'm confident, and I know for me, it's like my breath slows,
Mm,
my voice gets slower and lower.
yeah.
Yeah. And so if I'm not feeling confident, I say, hey, I'm going to slow down my breath. I'm going to lower my voice. And then my body goes, oh, we're doing confidence. Cool. Got it. So, so
I
it's
love it.
super helpful because it's like using lived experience as a building block
Yeah.
for future
No,
performance, right?
that's I mean, and I'll happily share my secret, but that's the secret of my success, is every single time I've faced something, and it also helps the accumulation of experiences, because the more you do, the more you've done.
Yes,
And the more you have to look back and go, well, yeah, I've done this before, right? So there's very few experiences that I'll face that I haven't done something similar or the exact same thing before. And
exactly.
and every single time I've done it, like, I want to approach someone and ask them to be an interview on my podcast. We've been podcasting since 2008. How many guests do you think you've had since then? What's one more? Like, I mean, that's sort of
Exactly.
what I use. And
Yeah,
I've got the evidence and proof to show that, me approaching Anne to ask her to be on my podcast is not going to hurt me, because I've done it a million times before. And it's not,
exactly.
right? So
Exactly.
I think and it's whatever little game you play with yourself in your
Yep.
mind to get you where you go, because it's not going to be the same for everyone. But it's to
Yep.
understand what pushes you to do the things that you need to do. And
Yep.
once you understand, and that's a bit of sort of soul searching yourself. But once you get there and okay, when I do this, here's what happens. Find ways to do more of this.
Yes, 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 yes. And I think it's a practice, right? And this is why I totally resonate with going back to times you've done it. But sometimes people just genuinely, like in the stuck perspective, they've never been unstuck or they've never been clear. So you get them. So that client you're talking about, think of a time you were clear on what you wanted and let it hang in the air and let them go inside and not have to answer you. And whatever comes up is never random.
Right.
It's going to be useful for them. But if they know that, okay, if it was something, oh, Audley's going to think this is so dumb, but they don't have to worry about sharing it with you, they're still going to get the benefit and you can use that as material to move forward with them. without even knowing what it is, which is super cool, right? Which is a lot of what I do. So the mental rehearsal as well, which I mean, athletes use, right? And so your body doesn't know the difference between actually doing something, your brain, pardon me, and thinking about it. And they've done an interesting basketball study. I don't know if you ever heard about the free throws and people that, dividing the basketball team into 3 groups. The one went every day or whatever, did the free throw. The other one thought about it. And the third was like the control group, which appeals to me because of my 20 plus years in clinical research. So it was sort of sciencey. But when they came back 1 month later, the ones that were doing it were improved by 26%. And the ones that were thinking about it, I think it was something crazy like 24%. Because your brain is just, it's not that smart. It's a data center, right? And so it's super cool. That's also a big chunk of what I do, is help people prepare for things. So when they get there, the brain goes, oh, I've done this before. Boom, here we go. So you're more, of course, you do the preparation work, but you're more likely to be successful when you do a mental rehearsal first, which is cool.
Well, I think it is important to have that process where you've gone through it, and you because going through that process, what you also do is you work through all the fears, doubts, and uncertainties, right? Like, you're like, this can't happen, but then you prove it can't happen because you did it, right? And so that's the important thing. Because the one last point back to that client was interesting. Actually, the conversation was about not knowing my purpose, but she's in an industry where it helps people, and so when we started talking about, hey, how did you feel when you helped people do this? Oh, I loved it. It was great. I actually enjoyed it. It brought me joy. Okay. Sounds like you're talking about something here that's purposely that you think.
Exactly, right? And you'll be able, it's being, and you'll notice it, obviously, after doing it for a long time. You can notice the elevation in their voice or their body language, whatever, and you're going, okay. And for sure. And then they're going to notice it too. Sometimes you have to point it out, or sometimes they just go, oh, I didn't think of it that way before. I forgot about that, or whatever the case may be. So that's great moments, right? Great moments, for sure. Yeah.
Well, speaking of great moments, this has been a great moment, and I really appreciate spending the time with you. We had a lot of fun, and really appreciate kind of delving deep into some wonderful topics that we talked about. But in terms of just really, ultimately, it's helping people get to a better place, what we're wanting to do, and certainly the work you're doing with women and men in terms of building their confidence is a key important step. So I want to thank you for that and congratulate you on landing on that for yourself first and foremost, because if you didn't do that, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Exactly.
So thank you so much. You've got another book coming out, which is, we'll have to keep an eye out for that. For listeners who wanted to connect with you directly or learn more about your work, where can we send them?
My website is steppingstonecoaching.ca. So anything you need to know, you can connect with me there.
Awesome. Thank you. Very cool. And thank you for doing this. Thank you for the chat today. It's been absolutely great. And keep up the fantastic work.
Thank you, Audley. Appreciate it. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Back we are here on the podcast, and much thanks and appreciation goes out to Anne for being here and offering up some fantastic insights on the things that we can do to fortify our confidence. It really is a process that can take time depending on where you are and where your starting point is. I think the key really is, and Anne talked about this, is the awareness, which is followed by the action part. And that's really the formula: awareness and take action. And really, you can apply that to most things. So again, Anne, thank you for being here. It was such a pleasure. I appreciated so much of what we chatted about with Anne and the conversation we had, but if there's just one thing I take from the chat, it would be this. Confidence is the quality that can transform our lives. It's a belief in ourselves and our abilities that enable us to tackle challenges, overcome obstacles, and reach our goals. Developing and nurturing confidence is a lifelong journey, but the rewards are immeasurable. Let's explore why it's so important to develop our confidence and how it can positively impact various aspects of our lives. Confidence acts as a shield against fear and self-doubt. When we have faith in our abilities and we're more likely to take risks and step out of our comfort zones, whether it's pursuing a new career opportunity, starting a business, or even engaging in a new social interaction, confidence empowers us to embrace uncertainty and seize opportunities for growth. By conquering our fears, we open doors to endless possibilities and unleash our true potential. Confidence plays a crucial role in building and maintaining healthy personal relationships. When we believe in ourselves, we exude positive energy, charisma, and authenticity, attracting others to us instantly. Confident individuals are more likely to express their thoughts and emotions openly, communicate effectively, and set clear boundaries. They inspire trust, respect, and admiration in others, fostering deep connections and nurturing meaningful relationships. In the professional realm, confidence is a huge driver of success. Whether you're aiming for a promotion, starting your own business, or delivering a presentation, confidence is paramount. It enables us to showcase our skills, articulate our ideas persuasively, and handle setbacks or criticisms with resilience. Confident individuals are more likely to take on leadership roles, pursue ambitious projects, and inspire their teams to perform at their best. And lastly, developing confidence has a profound effect on our mental and emotional well-being. When we have self-assurance, we experience reduced anxiety, stress, and self-doubt. Confidence helps us to silence our inner critic that we all have, embrace self-compassion, and cultivate a positive self-image. Confidence is closely linked to personal growth and self-improvement. By developing our confidence, we embark on a continuous journey of self-discovery and self-empowerment. We become more open to learning, seeking new experiences, and challenging ourselves. Confident individuals are not afraid to set ambitious goals, persist in the face of adversity, and pursue their passions with unwavering determination. Through this process, we not only expand our skills and knowledge, but also discover our true passions and purpose in life. In a world that often emphasizes self-doubt and comparison, nurturing our confidence is paramount and is so important. It empowers us to embrace challenges, pursue our dreams, and live life to the fullest. Developing confidence is a gradual process that requires self-reflection, practice, and resilience. By investing in our confidence, we'll unlock our true potential, experience personal growth, and inspire others along the way. So remember, confidence is not about being perfect or without flaws. It's about embracing our strengths, acknowledging our weaknesses, and still believing in ourselves. So go forth with confidence, for it's the key that unlocks the doors to your dreams and empowers you to create the life filled with purpose, joy, and audacious fulfillment. We've sadly reached the end of another episode of the most audacious podcast you'll find on the internet. And as always, I got to send a shout out and thanks to all those lovers of audaciousness that help continue to keep this podcast going with their ongoing support. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You